The moment my mother said, "We need you to sell your house," I knew my life was about to change forever. My name is Violet, and I'm 32 years old. I've spent most of those years being the family's designated problem solver, the one who swoops in when everyone else's poor decisions come home to roost. But that Tuesday evening in March, sitting in my parents' living room with foreclosure notices scattered across the coffee table like confetti from hell, I finally reached my breaking point. "Violet, honey, you have to understand," Mom continued, her voice taking on that familiar wheedling tone I'd heard 1,000 times before. "This isn't just about us. This is about family." Dad sat slumped in his recliner, avoiding eye contact. My younger brother Everett perched on the edge of the couch, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Which was rich, considering this whole mess was his fault. "Let me get this straight," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "You want me to sell the house I've spent 5 years renovating, the house I bought with my own money, to bail you out of a foreclosure that happened because you invested your retirement savings in Everett's cryptocurrency startup?" "It wasn't just cryptocurrency," Everett mumbled. "It was a whole fintech platform." "That lost every penny," I cut him off. "Every single penny." Mom's face crumpled in that practiced way that used to make me cave immediately. "Violet, we raised you. We sacrificed for you. Don't you think you owe us something?" The laugh that escaped me was harsh and bitter. "Sacrificed for me? Mom, you made me get a job at 14 to pay for my own school clothes while Everett got designer everything. You used my college fund to pay for his car. When I graduated valedictorian, you threw him a bigger party for making JV basketball. That's not—" "It is." I stood up, my hands shaking. "And now you want my house. The one thing I've built for myself. The one place that's actually mine." Dad finally looked up. "You're being selfish, Violet. We're family. Family helps family. Where was family when I was working 2 jobs to put myself through college? Where was family when I had pneumonia and called for help? But you were too busy driving Everett to his friend's lake house." "You've always been so independent," Mom said, like it was an accusation. "You never needed us like Everett does." "I never needed you because you taught me I couldn't count on you." The room went dead silent. Everett was staring at his phone. Dad had gone back to avoiding my eyes. Mom's mouth was opening and closing like a fish. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, grabbing my purse. "I'm going to leave. You're going to figure out your own mess. And I'm done being your emergency fund. If you walk out that door," Mom's voice turned ice cold, "don't expect to be welcome back." I paused at the threshold, my hand on the doorknob. For a split second, I felt that familiar tug of guilt, the ingrained need to smooth things over, to be the good daughter who fixes everything. Then I thought about my house, my beautiful, peaceful house with the garden I'd planted and the kitchen I'd tiled myself, the place where I could breathe. "Good," I said, and walked out. The next morning, I blocked all their numbers. Changed my locks, just in case. Told my boss I might need some time off if things got complicated. Then I sat in my kitchen, drinking coffee from my favorite mug, and waited for the guilt to hit. It never came. What came instead was something I hadn't felt in years. Relief. Pure, overwhelming relief. Like I'd been holding my breath for 3 decades and could finally exhale. But as I sat there in the quiet of my own space, one question kept nagging at me. I'd drawn a line in the sand, burned a bridge I'd been tiptoeing across my whole life. I was free. So why did I have this creeping feeling that they weren't done with me yet? 3 weeks after I walked out, my best friend Sawyer showed up at my door with Thai takeout and a bottle of wine. "You look like hell," she said, pushing past me into the kitchen. "Thanks. Really what I needed to hear today. When's the last time you showered?" She started unpacking containers of pad thai and green curry. And don't lie to me. I couldn't remember. The days had been blending together in a haze of work, Netflix, and avoiding my phone. Yesterday? Try again. Fine, 3 days. Maybe 4. Sawyer grabbed 2 plates from my cabinet. Okay, here's what's happening. We're eating, you're showering, and then we're talking about this guilt spiral you're in. I'm not in a guilt spiral. She gave me a look that could have melted steel. Violet, you haven't left this house except for work in 3 weeks. Caitlin tried to invite you to trivia night 5 times. You're screening calls from everyone, including me. I slumped into a chair. I just need some time to process. Process what? You did the right thing. Did I, though? The words tumbled out before I could stop them. They're my parents, Sawyer. What if they really do lose the house? What if— Stop. She sat down across from me, her expression serious. What did they do when you had that car accident 2 years ago and needed help with groceries? They were busy with Everett's graduation. What did they do when you got that promotion and wanted to celebrate? Mom said it was nice, but Everett had just gotten engaged. And what did they do when you called crying after your breakup with Marcus? I stared at my plate. Dad said I was probably better off alone anyway. Right, so tell me again why you owe them your house. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Don't answer it, Sawyer said. I looked at the screen. The text message made my stomach drop. This is Caitlin. Your mom got my number somehow. She called me crying, saying you abandoned the family. She wants me to talk sense into you. What the hell is going on? Shit. I showed Sawyer the message. They're making the rounds. She grabbed my phone and started typing. I'm telling Caitlin to come over. You need to hear this from both of us. An hour later, Caitlin burst through my door like a hurricane in yoga pants. Your mother is absolutely unhinged, she announced. She called me sobbing about how ungrateful you are, how she raised you better than this, how family is supposed to stick together. I told her I'd talk to you, but honestly, I wanted to tell her where she could stick her family loyalty. You didn't though, right? Of course not. I'm not stupid. Caitlin plopped down on my couch. But Violet, she's painting you as the villain here. She's telling everyone you're selfish and cruel. My chest tightened. Maybe I am. Oh, for fuck's sake. Caitlin threw a pillow at me. You are not cruel. You know what's cruel? Bleeding your kid dry for 30 years and then demanding their house when your golden boy screws up. Sawyer nodded. She's right. And you know what else? You need to talk to someone about this. Like, professionally. I don't need therapy. Everyone needs therapy, Caitlin said. Especially people who've been emotional punching bags their whole lives. We sat in silence for a moment. Then Sawyer cleared her throat. There's something else. I did some digging after you told us what happened. She pulled out her phone. Your mom has a sister, right? Adeline? I blinked. How do you know about Aunt Adeline? You mentioned her once, years ago. Said there was some big family fight and they don't talk anymore. Yeah, it happened when I was a kid. I barely remember her. Well, she remembers you. Sawyer showed me her phone screen. I found her on LinkedIn. She's some big shot consultant now. Lives about 2 hours away. My heart started racing. You didn't contact her, did you? No, but maybe you should. Sawyer, I can't just— Why not? What's the worst that could happen? She doesn't respond? You're already dealing with family drama. At least this way you might get some answers about why they had that falling out. Caitlin leaned forward. What if she knows something about your parents that could help you understand all this? I stared at Adeline's professional headshot on the screen. She looked successful, confident. Nothing like the broken woman I vaguely remembered from childhood whispers. I don't know. Just think about it, Sawyer said gently. You don't have to decide tonight. But as they left, and I sat alone in my quiet house. I couldn't stop thinking about it, about Adeline, about the mysterious fight that split the family, about the nagging feeling that there were pieces of this story I'd never been told. I opened my laptop and found myself typing an email before I could talk myself out of it. "Hi, Aunt Adeline. This is Violet, your sister Nancy's daughter. I know it's been a long time, but I was wondering if we could talk. There's been some family drama, and I have questions about the past that maybe you could help me understand." I hit send before I could chicken out. The response came back within an hour. "Violet, I've been wondering when you'd reach out. Yes, we should definitely talk. There's more to your parents than you know." Adeline's house was nothing like what I expected. Where my parents lived in suburban chaos, mismatched furniture, clutter everywhere, bills stacked on every surface. Adeline's place was clean lines and calm energy. She answered the door in a crisp white blouse and dark jeans, looking like she'd stepped out of a business magazine. "Violet." She studied my face for a long moment. "You look just like your grandmother." "I don't really remember her." "Of course you don't." Nancy made sure of that. She stepped aside to let me in. "Tea?" We sat in her living room, expensive-looking cups balanced on our knees. The silence stretched until I couldn't stand it anymore. "So, what happened? Between you and Mum, I mean." Adeline set down her cup. "How much do you know about your parents' financial history?" "Not much. They've always been chaotic with money." "Chaotic?" She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "That's one way to put it. Tell me, did they ever mention the inheritance from your grandmother?" My stomach dropped. "What inheritance?" "Exactly." Adeline leaned back in her chair. "When our mother died 15 years ago, she left everything to both of us. 50-50 split. The house, her savings, her jewelry, about $200,000 total. I never heard anything about because Nancy forged my signature on the paperwork and took it all." The words hit me like a physical blow. "She what?" "I was traveling for work when Mom died. Nancy handled all the funeral arrangements, said she'd take care of the estate. I trusted her." Adeline's voice was flat, controlled. "By the time I found out what she'd done, they'd already spent most of it." "On what?" "Everett's private school. That fancy car for your dad. The down payment on their current house." She paused. "Your college fund that mysteriously disappeared? It never existed. They used grandmother's money for everything except what it was supposed to be for." I felt sick. "Why didn't you fight it? Take them to court?" I tried. But Nancy's always been clever about covering her tracks. She had forged documents, fake witnesses. It would have been a long, expensive battle with no guarantee of winning. Adeline's jaw tightened. "So, I cut contact instead. Figured it was better to write off the money than deal with her manipulation for years." "But you lost your family." "I lost a sister who was willing to steal from me and lie about it. The family I thought I had was already gone." We sat in silence. I thought about all the times Mom had complained about money, all the guilt trips about how much they'd sacrificed for us kids. "There's more," Adeline said quietly. "More?" "The pattern didn't start with me, Violet. Your mother has been scapegoating strong women in this family for decades. Our older sister Rebecca? Nancy drove her away too, back when you were a baby. I have another aunt. Had. Rebecca died 3 years ago. Cancer. I only found out through an obituary online." Adeline's voice cracked slightly. "Nancy made sure none of us stayed in touch. Divide and conquer, you know. Keep everyone isolated so no one compares notes." My hands were shaking. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you're next in line. You're strong, independent, successful, everything Nancy can't control. So she'll destroy you if she can't use you. She already tried. The house thing was just the beginning." Adeline leaned forward. Violet, your mother doesn't just want your money. She wants to break you down until you're as dependent and miserable as the rest of them. It's what she does. I thought about Everett, still living at home at 28. About Dad, who hadn't made a decision without Mom's approval in decades. About myself, always running to fix their problems. How do I stop it? You already did. Walking away was the hardest part. Adeline smiled for the first time since I'd arrived. But you need to be prepared. She's not going to give up easily. What do you mean? Nancy doesn't handle rejection well. When I cut contact, she spent months trying to turn other family members against me. Told everyone I was jealous, selfish, mentally unstable. She'll do the same to you. As if on cue, my phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. This is your cousin Mike. Your mom called crying. She says you won't help with the house, and now they might be homeless. What's wrong with you? I showed Adeline the message. She nodded grimly. It's starting. She's mobilizing the family guilt machine. What do I do? Nothing. Don't defend yourself. Don't explain. Don't engage. The people who matter will figure out the truth eventually. The ones who don't, well, you're better off without them anyway. Another text came through. Then another. My phone started buzzing constantly. Turn it off, Adeline said. Come on, I'll make us some real food. You look like you haven't eaten a proper meal in weeks. As she moved around the kitchen, I watched her efficient movements, her calm confidence. This was what it looked like to be free of them, to have boundaries that actually meant something. Adeline? Yes. Thank you for telling me the truth. She paused in her chopping. Violet, I should have reached out years ago. I should have warned you. I'm sorry I didn't. You're here now. That's what matters. But even as I said it, my phone kept buzzing in my pocket. The family guilt machine was just getting started. The legal papers arrived on a Thursday morning, delivered by a guy who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Violet Grant? He held out a manila envelope like it might bite him. Yeah, that's me. You've been served. I signed for it with shaking hands, already knowing this was going to be bad. But when I opened it and read the first page, my legs gave out. I had to sit down right there on my front porch. My parents had listed me as a co-signer on their mortgage refinance, the one they'd used to fund Everett's business. The bank was coming after me for the debt. My phone was already ringing before I could process what I was reading. Adeline? They're saying I co-signed their mortgage. They're saying I owe $60,000. Slow down. What exactly does the paperwork say? I read her the relevant sections, my voice getting higher with each line. But I never signed anything. I've never even seen these documents. Can you get to my house? Bring everything. We need to look at this together. An hour later, I was spread across Adeline's dining room table with legal documents, my laptop, and a growing sense of panic. Look at this signature, Adeline said, pointing to a scrawled version of my name. It's close, but the V is wrong. You loop yours differently. How can you tell? She pulled out her phone and showed me a photo. Birthday card you sent me last week. See the difference? She was right. The signature on the mortgage papers was similar but not identical. Someone had practiced, but not perfectly. They forged my signature, just like Nancy did with mine 15 years ago. Adeline's voice was grim. We need a lawyer. Now. I can't afford— I can. Consider it an investment in justice. The lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Patricia, took one look at the documents and shook her head. This is fraud. Clear as day. She pointed to several inconsistencies. The signature, the date discrepancies, the fact that you weren't present for notarization. We can fight this. How long will it take? Few weeks to get it dismissed, assuming they don't want to push it to trial. But, Patricia paused, you should know, filing a fraud claim means potential criminal charges against whoever forged your signature. My stomach lurched. Criminal charges? Forgery is a felony. If we prove they did this, they could face jail time. I looked at Adeline. She nodded slowly. Do it, I said. That afternoon, my phone exploded. Not just texts now. Actual calls from numbers I didn't recognize. Distant relatives, family friends, people I hadn't spoken to in years. Violet, it's your cousin Sarah. Your mum says you're trying to put them in jail over some paperwork mix-up. That can't be true, right? I hung up without answering. The next call was worse. This is Mrs. Henderson from down the street. Your poor mother is beside herself. She says you're being vindictive over a simple mistake. Surely you can work this out as a family. I turned my phone off, but the landline started ringing. Then someone knocked on my door. Don't answer it, Adeline said. She'd come over after I called her crying. Let them exhaust themselves. But the knocking continued. Then the doorbell. Then someone started calling my name from the sidewalk. Violet, open up! We need to talk! I peeked through the blinds. My neighbor from 3 houses down was standing on my lawn with his arms crossed. This is insane, I whispered. This is Nancy, Adeline corrected. She's turned you into the neighborhood villain. Classic move. My phone, even though it was off, somehow had 17 voicemails when I turned it back on. I played the first one. Violet, this is your father. His voice was shaking. I don't know what's gotten into you, but you need to call off these lawyers. Your mother is having chest pains from the stress. Do you want to put her in the hospital? The second voicemail was from Everett. Vi, come on. This is getting out of hand. Mom's talking about taking pills or something. She's really messed up. Just drop the lawsuit, okay? We'll figure something else out. The third was from a number I didn't recognize. This is Father Martinez from St. Catherine's. Your mother asked me to call. She's very concerned about your spiritual well-being. Perhaps we could meet and discuss forgiveness and family obligations. I looked at Adeline. They got their priest involved. Nancy always was thorough. The fourth voicemail made my blood run cold. Violet, it's Mom. Her voice was different now. Flat. Dangerous. I know you think you're so smart with your lawyers and your attitude, but you have no idea what you've started. Family is everything, and you've chosen to destroy yours. There will be consequences for this. Mark my words. I played it again, my hands shaking. Is that a threat? I asked Adeline. It sounds like one to me. She was already reaching for her phone. I'm calling Patricia. We need to document this. As she dialed, my phone buzzed with a text from Everett. Something bad happened. Mom and Dad lost the house. They're packing right now. This is all your fault. I hope you're happy. I stared at the message, waiting for the guilt to hit. For the urge to call them, to fix everything, to be the good daughter who saves the day. But all I felt was a cold, hard certainty that this was just the beginning. 2 months after the legal papers, Adeline moved in with me. It's temporary, she said, carrying a suitcase up my front steps. Just until I figure out what to do about the cancer. I nearly dropped the box I was holding. What cancer? Breast cancer. Early stage, very treatable. But the treatment's going to knock me on my ass for a while. She set down her suitcase and looked at me. I was going to handle it alone, but then I thought, why? I have family now. Real family. Of course you're staying here, for as long as you need. Having Adeline in the house changed everything. She made coffee at 5 a.m. and read the news on her tablet. She organized my spice rack and fixed my leaky bathroom faucet. She listened when I came home from therapy sessions, raw and exhausted from digging through 30 years of family dysfunction. Tell me about the guilt, Dr. Martinez said during one session. Not the priest, My therapist happened to have the same last name, which felt like cosmic irony. It's getting better, but sometimes I wake up at 3 a.m. wondering if they're okay, if they have food, if they're safe. And what do you do with those thoughts? I remind myself that their safety isn't my responsibility, that I didn't create this situation. Good. What else? I remember what Adeline told me about the pattern, how Mum has been doing this to strong women in our family for decades, how if I give in now, it'll never stop. When I got home from that session, Adeline was in the kitchen making soup. How'd it go? Better. I'm starting to understand that saying no isn't cruel. It's necessary. Damn right it is. She ladled soup into bowls. You know what your problem was? You thought love meant sacrifice, but real love doesn't ask you to destroy yourself. That night, we sat on my back porch watching the sunset. Adeline was wearing a soft knit cap. The chemo had started, and her hair was thinning. Can I ask you something? I said. Shoot. Do you ever regret cutting them off, even knowing what you know now? Adeline was quiet for a long moment. I regret not doing it sooner. I regret all the years I spent trying to fix things that were never my responsibility to fix. She looked at me. But cutting them off? Never. It saved my life. Even though you lost your whole family? Violet, I didn't lose my family. I found it. She gestured between us. This is family. Two people who choose to support each other, who don't keep score, who don't demand sacrifices. This is what family should be. The next morning, I found a note slipped under my front door. No signature, just block letters on plain paper. We need you. We're coming. I showed it to Adeline over breakfast. Well, she said, buttering her toast calmly. That's ominous. Should I call the police? And tell them what? Your estranged family sent you a vague note? They'll file it under family drama and forget about it. So what do I do? You prepare. Mentally, emotionally, practically. She finished her toast and looked at me seriously. Violet, they're going to show up here eventually. Probably when they're desperate enough to try one last manipulation. When they do, you need to be ready. Ready how? Ready to say no and mean it. Ready to not let them in your house or your head. Ready to close the door and walk away. That afternoon, Sawyer and Caitlin came over for what had become our weekly check-in. They'd been incredible through all of this, showing up with groceries when I was too anxious to shop, sitting with me during chemo appointments with Adeline, running interference when random relatives tried to ambush me at work. Any word from the family circus? Caitlin asked, settling onto my couch with a glass of wine. Just this. I showed them the note. Creepy, Sawyer said, but also kind of pathetic. Like, what are they, 12? The pathetic part is what makes them dangerous, Adeline said from the kitchen. Desperate people do desperate things. What's the worst they could do? Caitlin asked. Show up crying? Try to guilt trip you? You've handled that already. They could show up with suitcases, I said quietly. Homeless, with nowhere else to go. Banking on the fact that I won't let family sleep on the street. The room went quiet. Would you? Sawyer asked. Let them in, I mean. I thought about it. Really thought about it. 6 months ago, the answer would have been yes, absolutely. I would have opened my door and my wallet and probably my spare bedroom. No, I said, and the word felt solid, final. I wouldn't. Good, Adeline said from the doorway, because that's exactly what they're planning. How do you know? Because it's what Nancy did to Rebecca 20 years ago, showed up homeless with Everett as a baby, crying about having nowhere to go. Rebecca took them in, and Nancy spent the next 6 months systematically destroying her marriage and her finances. By the time Rebecca kicked them out, her husband had left, and she'd lost her house. Jesus, Caitlin whispered. Nancy's playbook never changes. She just finds new victims. Adeline sat down next to me. But you're not Rebecca. You know what's coming. You're prepared. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Somewhere out there, my parents and brother were planning their next move. They thought they knew me, the dutiful daughter who always caved, who always fixed things, who always put family first. They were about to find out how wrong they were. The doorbell rang at 9:47 p.m. on a Tuesday night in October. I was in my pajamas, curled up on the couch with Adeline watching some cooking show. She'd finished her last round of chemo the week before and was finally starting to look like herself again. Colour in her cheeks, spark back in her eyes. The bell rang again, then again. Then someone started pounding on the door. "Violet! We know you're in there! Open up!" My blood turned to ice. Mum's voice, but different, desperate, raw. Adeline muted the TV and looked at me. "You ready for this?" I nodded, but my hands were shaking as I walked to the front door. Through the peephole, I could see them huddled on my porch. Mom, Dad, and Everett, all carrying suitcases and looking like they'd been sleeping rough. "Violet, please!" Mum's voice cracked. "We just need somewhere to stay tonight. We've been in the car for 3 days." "Don't open it," Adeline said quietly behind me, but I found myself reaching for the deadbolt anyway. Some deeply ingrained part of me couldn't stand the thought of family sleeping in a car. "Violet!" Adeline's hand covered mine on the lock. "Remember what we talked about. Remember Rebecca." I pulled my hand back and pressed my forehead against the door. "Violet," Dad's voice now. "Come on, honey. We're family. You can't just leave us out here." "I can talk to them through the door," I said to Adeline. "You can, but you don't have to." I took a deep breath. "Mom? I can hear you. What do you want?" "We want to come inside and talk to you like civilized people," Mom said. "We've been driving around for days looking for you. We lost everything, Violet. Everything. The house. The car. Well, the bank's repossessing it tomorrow. We have nowhere else to go. What about Everett's friends, his business partners?" "They won't return our calls." Everett's voice, sullen and angry. "Everyone's acting like we have the plague or something. Where have you been staying?" "Motels when we could afford them. The car when we couldn't." Mom's voice was getting that familiar manipulative quaver. "Your father's back is killing him from sleeping in the front seat. I haven't had a real shower in 4 days." I closed my eyes. This was the moment. The test of everything I'd learned, everything I'd built over the past 6 months. "I'm sorry you're going through this," I said through the door, "but I can't help you." Silence. Then Dad's voice, sharper now. "Can't or won't? Won't." "Jesus Christ, Violet!" Everett exploded. "What is wrong with you? We're your family." "You forged my signature on legal documents," I said, my voice getting stronger. "You tried to make me responsible for your debt. You turned half the family against me with lies." "That was a misunderstanding," Mum started. "It was fraud. Felony fraud." "We dropped the charges," Dad said. "We told them it was a mistake, after my lawyer proved you were lying." More silence. Then Mom's voice, different now, colder. "Fine. If that's how you want to play this, fine, but don't think this is over. You can't hide behind that door forever." "I'm not hiding. I'm setting boundaries." "Boundaries?" Mom laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Is that what your therapist taught you? To abandon your family when they need you most?" "My therapist taught me that love doesn't require self-destruction." "Oh, spare me the psychology bullshit. You know what I think? I think you're enjoying this. I think you like seeing us suffer." Something shifted inside me. The last piece of guilt, the final thread of obligation, just snapped. "You know what, Mom? Maybe I am enjoying it a little. Maybe after 30 years of being your emotional punching bag and emergency ATM, It feels good to watch you face consequences for once. Violet! Dad sounded shocked. What? You want honesty? Here's honesty. You destroyed your own lives with your greed and your favoritism and your complete inability to take responsibility for anything. And now you want me to fix it, just like always. Well, I'm done fixing your messes. We raised you, Mom screamed. We gave you everything. You gave me trauma and debt and a lifetime of feeling like I was never good enough. I was shouting now, months of suppressed anger pouring out. Behind me, I felt Adeline's hand on my shoulder, steadying me. You want to know what you gave me? I continued. You gave me the knowledge that family will use you up and throw you away the second you stop being useful. You gave me trust issues and anxiety and the inability to believe I deserve love without paying for it. Violet, please. Mom's voice was smaller now. We're sorry. We'll do better. Just let us in. No. What? I said no. You're not coming in. You're not staying here. You're not my problem anymore. I heard whispering on the other side of the door. Then Everett's voice, louder. Fine, but when you're old and alone and need help, don't come crying to us. I won't, I said. I promise you, I won't. More whispering. Then footsteps moving away from the door. I stayed pressed against it, listening, until I heard car doors slam and an engine start. Only then did I turn around. Adeline was standing behind me, arms crossed, smiling. How do you feel? She asked. I thought about it. Free. Good, because look who was watching from the kitchen window. She stepped aside, and I saw them both, Sawyer and Caitlin, grinning at me from the doorway. We came over to check on you, Sawyer said. Heard the shouting from the driveway. That, Caitlin said, was fucking beautiful. But even as we hugged and laughed and celebrated, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. The look on Mum's face through the peephole, the tone in her voice at the end. This felt like a retreat, not a surrender. They'd be back. They came back 3 days later, this time at 6 a.m., when they knew I'd be getting ready for work. The pounding on the door was violent, desperate. I was in the kitchen making coffee when it started, and I nearly dropped the pot. Violet, open this door right now! Mom's voice, but worse than before, ragged, unhinged. Adeline appeared in the doorway, pulling on her robe. Same plan as before? I nodded, but my heart was hammering. Something felt different this time, more dangerous. We know you're in there. Dad's voice joined Mom's. Your car's in the driveway. We're not leaving until you talk to us, Everett added. I walked to the front door, but didn't look through the peephole. I didn't want to see their faces. You need to leave, I called out. I told you Tuesday night. Tuesday night you were being dramatic. Mom cut me off. We've had time to think about this rationally. We have a proposition. I'm not interested in any propositions. Just hear us out, Dad said. 5 minutes. That's all we're asking. No. The pounding started again, harder this time. My front door was solid wood, but it was shaking in the frame. Open this door, Violet, Mom screamed. We are your parents. You owe us basic respect. I don't owe you anything. The hell you don't. We fed you, clothed you, put a roof over your head for 18 years. And I've been paying you back ever since. Not nearly enough. Mom's voice was getting higher, more frantic. You think a few thousand here and there makes up for everything we sacrificed. You think... She stopped mid-sentence. I heard muffled voices, like they were arguing among themselves. Then Everett's voice, clearer than the others. Just tell her. Tell me what? Silence. Then Dad cleared his throat. Violet, we need to be honest with you about something. Oh, this should be good, Adeline muttered behind me. The house situation. It's worse than we said. We don't just owe the bank. We owe other people. dangerous people. My blood went cold. What kind of people? Everett's business partners weren't all legitimate, Mom said, her voice smaller now. Some of the investors, they want their money back, with interest. How much interest? A lot, Everett said. Like, break your legs kind of interest. I looked at Adeline. Her face had gone pale. So you came here, I said slowly, to my house, leading dangerous people to my door. We didn't lead them anywhere, Dad protested. We've been careful. You've been driving around for days. You think they can't follow you? Violet, please. Mom's voice was breaking now. We just need enough money to disappear. Start over somewhere else. You have equity in this house. You could take out a loan. Absolutely not. They're going to kill us, Everett shouted. Do you understand that? They're going to actually kill us. Then you should have thought of that before you got involved with loan sharks. We didn't know, Mom sobbed. We thought it was just business investors. Bullshit, Adeline said, loud enough for them to hear. Nobody invests in cryptocurrency startups without doing due diligence. Silence from the other side of the door. Who is that? Mom's voice was sharp now. Who's in there with you? I looked at Adeline. She nodded. Someone who knows exactly what kind of people you are, I said. Violet, who is in your house? Adeline stepped up beside me and spoke directly to the door. Hello, Nancy. The silence that followed was deafening. I could practically hear my parents' hearts stopping. Adeline. Mum's voice was barely a whisper. Surprised? You shouldn't be. Strong women in this family have a way of finding each other. You turned her against us, Dad said, his voice shaking with rage. You poisoned her mind with your lies. I told her the truth. About the inheritance you stole. About Rebecca. About your pattern of destroying anyone who threatens your control. That's not... We never... You forged my signature 15 years ago and stole $200,000, Adeline said, her voice cutting through Dad's stammering. You drove Rebecca out of the family and destroyed her life. And now you're trying to do the same thing to Violet. She's our daughter, Mom screamed. She belongs with us. She belongs with people who love her without conditions, Adeline shot back. People who don't see her as an ATM with legs. You don't know anything about our family. I know you're standing on her doorstep at 6 a.m. demanding money to pay off loan sharks. I know you forged her signature on mortgage documents. I know you've spent 30 years making her feel guilty for existing. I heard Mom start crying. Not the manipulative tears she usually deployed, but ugly, desperate sobs. Violet, she said through the door. Please, I'm begging you. We're your family. No, I said, and my voice was steady now. Strong. Family doesn't forge signatures. Family doesn't steal inheritances. Family doesn't show up with dangerous people looking for them and ask you to risk your life to save theirs. So that's it? Everett's voice was bitter. You're just going to let us die? I'm going to let you face the consequences of your choices. We'll tell everyone what you did, Mom said, her voice turning vicious. We'll tell them you let your own family get murdered because you were too selfish to help. Go ahead, I said. Tell them. Tell them everything. Tell them about the forgery and the theft and the loan sharks. I'm sure they'll be very sympathetic. I heard footsteps moving away from the door, then coming back. This isn't over, Mom said. You think you can hide behind that door forever, but you can't. We'll find another way. No, Adeline said firmly. You won't, because I'm here now, and I know all your tricks. I know how you operate, and I won't let you destroy another strong woman in this family. Adeline, get off this property, now, before I call the police and tell them about the loan sharks and the threats and the harassment. More footsteps, car doors slamming, engine starting. I waited until the sound faded completely before I turned around. Adeline was looking at me with something like pride. How do you feel? I thought about it. Like I just won a war. You did. We both did. But as we stood there in my hallway, I couldn't shake the feeling that wars have casualties. And sometimes, even when you win, the cost is higher than you ever imagined. The news came through Sawyer 3 weeks after the doorstep confrontation. So, I have an update on your family situation, she said, settling into my kitchen chair with her usual directness. My cousin works at the county courthouse. Thought you'd want to know. I looked up from the soup I was stirring. Adeline was napping upstairs. Her energy was still returning slowly, but she was getting stronger every day. Good news or bad news? Depends on your perspective. Sawyer pulled out her phone. Your parents filed for bankruptcy. Complete liquidation. And Everett, well, let's just say those business partners you mentioned weren't very patient. My stomach dropped. Is he? Alive, but relocated. Witness protection kind of thing. Apparently he rolled over on some bigger fish to save his own skin. I sat down hard. Jesus. There's more. Your mom's been telling anyone who'll listen that you're responsible for all of this, that you could have prevented it if you'd just helped them. Of course she is. But here's the thing, nobody's buying it. Mrs. Henderson from your old neighborhood? She called my mom to ask what really happened. Turns out your parents have been hitting up everyone they know for money, telling different stories to different people. People are starting to compare notes. Sawyer showed me her phone screen. It was a Facebook post from someone I vaguely recognized, a family friend from years ago. Just found out the Grants have been telling people their daughter abandoned them, but also that she's mentally ill, but also that she stole money from them, but also that she's controlled by an evil relative. Which is it? Starting to think Nancy and Wallace aren't as innocent as they claim. The comments were brutal, person after person sharing their own experiences with my parents' manipulation, their requests for money, their contradictory stories. It's like watching a house of cards collapse, Sawyer said. All those years of lies are finally catching up with them. I scrolled through more comments. Neighbors talking about the screaming matches they'd overheard. Old co-workers mentioning the times my parents had asked for loans. Even some of Everett's friends chiming in about his entitled behavior and get-rich-quick schemes. How do you feel about all this? Sawyer asked. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. This is your cousin Mike. I owe you an apology. Mom told me what really happened with Grandma's inheritance. I'm sorry I believed Nancy's lies about you. You did the right thing. Then another text, from a different number. Hi Violet, this is Sarah. I wanted to reach out after talking to Uncle Mike. I had no idea about the forged signatures and everything else. I'm sorry for the nasty message I sent you months ago. You didn't deserve that. My phone kept buzzing. More apologies. More people who'd finally heard the real story and realized they'd been played. The truth has a way of coming out, Adeline said from the doorway. She'd woken up from her nap and was looking more alert than she had in weeks. How long have you been standing there? Long enough to see justice in action. She sat down next to me and looked at my phone. You know what this means, don't you? That my family's reputation is destroyed? That you're free, completely free. No more guilt, no more wondering if you did the right thing, no more looking over your shoulder waiting for the next manipulation. She was right. For the first time in my adult life, I felt truly untethered from their chaos. The fear that had been living in my chest for months, the fear that they'd find a way to drag me back in, was finally gone. There's something else, Sawyer said. My courthouse cousin mentioned that your parents are looking at some serious legal trouble. The loan shark thing led to a bigger investigation. Turns out Everett's business was involved in some money laundering. So they might actually face consequences? Real consequences. The kind that don't go away when you cry and make promises to do better. That evening, I sat on my back porch with Adeline. watching the sunset. The air was crisp with the promise of winter, but I felt warmer than I had in years. Any regrets? Adeline asked. I thought about it honestly. I regret that it took me so long to see what they were. I regret all the years I spent trying to earn love that was never going to be freely given. But not the choice to walk away. Never. Not for a second. My phone buzzed one more time. Another unknown number, but this message was different. Violet, this is Rebecca's daughter Emma. I found your number through Adeline. I wanted you to know that Mum talked about you before she died. She said she hoped you'd be stronger than she was, that you'd find a way to break the cycle. I think she'd be proud of you. I showed the message to Adeline. Her eyes filled with tears. She would be proud, Adeline said softly. We both broke the cycle. We both chose ourselves over their dysfunction. Do you think they'll ever change? Does it matter? They're not your responsibility anymore. She was right. Whatever happened to my parents and Everett from here on out was their story to write. I had my own story now, one where I got to choose who deserved my love, my time, my energy, one where I finally understood that the most radical act of self-love is sometimes simply saying no and walking away.